Scorecard management allowed me to manage a 7-figure team in just 1 hour per week. It allows you to see if your business is on track in terms of numbers and in terms of actions. In this video, I'm going to explain why you need a scorecard. I'll show you how it works by showing you our actual scorecard that we used for a 7-figure store. And then I'll show you how to steal our scorecard to set it up for your Shopify brand. So the idea of scorecard management is to avoid micromanagement within your company. The way it works is that you're going to track on a weekly basis the results of your business and the actions that have been taken by your team. You're going to set the goals at a business level and at a department level, and then you're going to track on a weekly basis whether your team is on track or not. And by doing this, your role as a manager is not only to, first of all, track if your business is on track, and then secondly, to help your team members that didn't manage to reach their goals and figure out what type of resources they need in order to reach them next week. And the idea here is to not fix what's not broken. So if everything's on track, you as a manager don't really need to intervene. Your goal is really only to figure out where are we not on track, and then for these specific items, see with the team how you can help them and which resources you can liberate, how you can advise them if you have more knowledge in that particular field. And so the core elements of a good scorecard is, of course, to set your goals properly. And to do that, let me remind you what we did in the previous videos, where we defined our company level OKRs, which is our 1-year goals. And then we have split them up into team level OKRs, which are yearly goals on a team level. And then we need to split them into quarterly goals, which we have done here by looking at the Q2 goals. And then we need to define the weekly results and efforts that are necessary in order to reach those goals by the end of Q2. So in this very specific example, the goal is to reach $200,000 in revenue per month. And therefore, we need to reach $50,000 per week in Q2. And then all the other goals from the different departments are going to be cascading down from this original $50,000 per week goal. So here you can really see how everything fits together. We started from our 3-year vision that we turned into 1-year OKR, that we turned into quarterly goals, that we turned into weekly and daily actions for the team. Now, let me tell you a story about why we do it like that. Let's imagine that you want to decide what to have for dinner. Therefore, you go to your fridge, open your fridge, see which ingredients you have in your fridge, and then decide what to cook based on that. Now, imagine a second approach, which would be to say, okay, what are my current goals in my life, which is gaining 5 pounds of muscles? Which nutrients do I need to reach that? Therefore, what do I want to eat for dinner? And then therefore, which ingredients do I need to buy in order to reach those goals? Now, in which situation do you have the most chances of actually reaching your body goals? Option 2, right? And that's also what we're doing with our system. So we're seeing what do we want to reach in 3 years? Therefore, what do we need to reach this year? Therefore, what are the actions we need to take on a weekly and daily basis in order to reach those goals? And then, in case we don't actually manage to reach those goals because they're too stretched or because of whatever reason, how can I, as a manager, liberate the resources necessary to help the team reach those numbers? Should we hire? Should we pay an agency? Should we buy some new tools? Should I help setting up better processes, etc.? Okay, so now I'll walk through this actual scorecard that we use to actually manage a 7-figure team, and we'll go through everything, and I'll show you how I used it. I'll give you some examples so that you can really understand how this works and fully implement it in your business. So the first thing we did is, of course, defining the goal, the revenue goal, $50,000 per week, as we just mentioned earlier, at a MER of 2.5. The MER is a marketing efficiency ratio, so it's the overall return on investment of your marketing efforts. So in order to reach those $50,000 per week, the Meta ads needed to generate 15,000, TikTok ads needed to generate 15,000, Google ads needed to generate 8,000, SEO needed to generate 5,000, and email needed to generate 5,000. So on a weekly basis, we would track those numbers, and there's only one person in charge of each one of these numbers. So it's very clear if any of those numbers are off, the person in charge of these numbers is the one that has to come with the explanation about why it's the case. So before the weekly meeting, he has to have identified what the issue is, where it came from, what potential solutions are, and whether or not he needs some extra resources or support in order to get back on track by next week. And with this idea of number ownership, it's also not you as a manager filling in those numbers. It's the person in charge of the numbers who will come and fill in their area of the scorecards every week so that they really take ownership of this number. And you want the scorecard to be filled in at least 1 day in advance so that you have the time to have a good overview and dig into the details if necessary before the meeting. Now, of course, just looking at results would be a bit limited because, as we know, there's seasonality, there's elements that are outside of our control that can come and impact the actual results of your business. So therefore, we also look at the actions. So you want the sum of your actions to realistically be able to generate the expected results, so that in case you have a dip for some seasonality, something that is difficult or hard to explain, you can prove that you did the efforts to actually get on track, and that over time, if you look over a longer period of time, you will actually reach the actual results you're expecting because the required actions have been taken to reach it. For example, for Facebook ads, we defined that having 5 new scripts, which are turned into 5 new creatives, and having 2 extra iterations per week would be enough to help us reach those goals. Same for SEO. In order to reach our goals, we needed to publish 7 articles. We needed to update 7 articles because Google likes you to refresh articles every 6 months. And we needed to have 2 new backlinks per week in order to be on track for our SEO goal. Then for emails, if we launched 2 campaigns per week, that was enough. And so this shows you also the minimum effective dose that you have identified for reaching your overall quarterly goals. This allows you to not overspend resources, for example, on email by sending out 1 campaign per day. If you have upfront that 2 should be enough, then you can stick to it, even though at the beginning things might need time to pick up. Your team might need time to optimize to actually get those results, which are the results that you're expecting by the end of the quarter anyways. So in theory, in the first few weeks, all the results should be red, but then all the actions should already be almost green, except if you're really ramping up production. So for example, if you used to only produce 2 creatives per week, you can't expect from 1 week to the other to reach 5. But over the quarter, your team should be increasing slowly but surely to reach those 5 creatives per week by the end of the quarter. And it's the same with Meta ads results. If your ads are currently making 10,000 per week, you can't expect them to increase by 50% by the next week. It will take time, and what we want to see is whether or not we are on track to reach those 15K by the end of the quarter. And then same here goes with the ROAS. You can't expect the ROAS to be the same every week. So of course you want to see that you're close to it and beating it on a regular basis. But you also want to consider the over extended period of time to get close to your actual goal rather than to just look at it on a weekly basis. So the purpose of this tool is not to criticize your team members, it's not to judge them, it's not to micromanage them. It's just for you to see whether or not we are on track. And then if we are, it's good. And then you look at the next item. If you are not, then you dive deeper into why we might not be on track and whether or not the team needs some resources and has a plan to get back on track, or whether the team has identified the issue, has a plan to get back on track, or if they need your resources or your help in order to make it back on track by next week or by the end of the quarter. And then, of course, this can be slightly dynamic if some objectives are not realistic at all, either in terms of actions, either in terms of results, or in terms of relationship between actions and results. Then you can always adjust that during the quarter. The purpose here is not to burn out your teams. It's just to see where you're on track and having your business rolling without you being involved too much. So if you want access to this scorecard or any other documents that I mentioned in this video, just tell me in the comments and I'll send you the link, or I might even add them in the description under this video already. If you feel like you need to modify this template, don't hesitate, because there's 1,000 ways to scale to 7 and 8 figures. So you might have very different channels or a very different marketing mix than we did. Feel free to adapt, do as it works for you. And I hope this scorecard management system also helps you to delegate better, to manage your team more efficiently, to find freedom and enjoyment for your business, and to have time to do the things you love.